The retreat. Cynthia had always been the kind of woman who put others before herself. For 10 years, she had been the devoted wife to Ruben, a hardworking man who provided for their family but often left little room for romance or emotional connection. She was the mother to 2 beautiful children, the glue that held their home together, and the silent bearer of countless sacrifices. But as she stood in front of the mirror on the morning of her spa retreat, she noticed the faint lines around her eyes, the tiredness in her expression, and the way her shoulders seemed to carry an invisible weight. She had booked the retreat as a gift to herself, a rare indulgence in a life filled with responsibilities. The spa, a luxurious haven tucked away in the hills of Enugu, promised relaxation and renewal. Cynthia hoped it would help her rediscover the woman she had lost somewhere along the way. The drive to the spa was quiet, the hum of the car engine a soothing backdrop to her thoughts. She replayed the conversation she'd had with Ruben the night before. A spa retreat, he had asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. Isn't that for rich women with too much time on their hands? Cynthia had forced a smile, brushing off his comment. Ruben wasn't unkind, just practical, and sometimes oblivious to her needs. She had assured him it was just a weekend to unwind, but deep down, she knew it was more than that. It was a desperate attempt to fill the void that had been growing inside her, a void she couldn't explain, even to herself. When she arrived at the spa, she was greeted by the scent of lavender and the sound of soft instrumental music playing in the background. The staff were warm and welcoming, and the serene atmosphere immediately put her at ease. She checked in, changed into a plush robe, and sipped on a cup of herbal tea as she waited for her first treatment. It was then that she noticed him, Emeka, the masseur. He was young, probably in his late 20s, with a confident stride and a smile that seemed to light up the room. When their eyes met, Cynthia felt a strange flutter in her chest, a sensation she quickly dismissed as nerves. The massage room was dimly lit, with candles casting a soft glow on the walls. Cynthia lay face down on the table, her body tense as she waited for Emeka to begin. She had never been comfortable with the idea of a stranger touching her, but she reminded herself that this was part of the experience. When his hands first made contact with her skin, she flinched slightly, but his touch was so gentle, so deliberate, that she soon relaxed. He started with her shoulders, his fingers working expertly to release the tension that had built up over the years. Cynthia closed her eyes, allowing herself to sink into the sensation. As the massage progressed, Emeka's hands moved lower, kneading the knots in her back and the base of her spine. Cynthia felt a warmth spreading through her body, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. But then, something changed. Emeka's touch became more intimate, his fingers lingering in places that made her breath catch. She told herself it was just part of the massage, but the way his hands moved felt deliberate, almost provocative. Her heart began to race, and she felt a surge of emotions she couldn't quite name: desire, guilt, confusion. She wanted to tell him to stop, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she lay there, paralyzed by the intensity of her own feelings. When the massage ended, Emeka handed her a towel and smiled. "You carry a lot of tension," he said, his voice soft but probing. "You should take better care of yourself." Cynthia nodded, unable to meet his gaze. She quickly dressed and left the room, her mind reeling. What had just happened? She had always prided herself on her fidelity, on being a good wife and mother. But in that moment, she had felt something she hadn't felt in years, alive. And it terrified her. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Cynthia tried to focus on the other treatments, the facial, the yoga session, the meditation, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Emeka. She found herself stealing glances at him whenever he passed by, her heart racing at the mere sight of his smile. That evening, she decided to take a walk in the spa's garden, hoping the fresh air would clear her mind. The garden was beautiful, with winding paths and blooming flowers, but Cynthia barely noticed. Her thoughts were consumed by the memory of Emeka's touch, the way it had awakened something deep within her. She was so lost in her thoughts that she didn't notice Emeka approaching until he was standing beside her. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice breaking the silence. Cynthia hesitated, then nodded. They walked in silence for a while, the tension between them palpable. Finally, Emeka spoke. "You seem troubled," he said. "Is everything okay?" Cynthia sighed, unsure of how to respond. She wanted to tell him everything about her marriage, her doubts, her fears, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she said, I don't know who I am anymore." Emeka stopped walking and turned to face her. "Sometimes," he said, "we get so caught up in taking care of others that we forget to take care of ourselves. You deserve to be happy, Cynthia. But only you can decide what that means." His words struck a chord deep within her, and for the first time, she allowed herself to consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she deserved more than the life she had settled for. When Cynthia returned home, she was greeted by the familiar chaos of family life. Reuben was in the living room, watching TV, while the children ran around, their laughter filling the house. She tried to slip back into her routine, but everything felt different. She couldn't stop thinking about Emeka, about the way he had made her feel. She found herself questioning everything, her marriage, her choices, her very identity. One evening, as she and Reuben sat down for dinner, she decided to broach the subject. "Do you ever feel like something's missing?" she asked, her voice tentative. Reuben looked up from his plate, his expression puzzled. "Missing? Like what?" Cynthia hesitated, then shook her head. "Never mind," she said, forcing a smile. But inside, she felt a pang of disappointment. Reuben would never understand, and perhaps that was the problem. The decision. Over the next few weeks, Cynthia found herself at a crossroads. She could continue living the life she had always known, burying her desires and doubts beneath the weight of responsibility. Or she could take a leap of faith, risking everything for the chance to find true happiness. It wasn't an easy decision, and there were no guarantees. But as she lay in bed one night, staring at the ceiling, she realized that she couldn't go on pretending. She had to choose, not just for herself, but for the woman she wanted to become. In the end, Cynthia decided to stay. Not because she was afraid of change, but because she realized that true happiness wasn't something she could find in the arms of another man. It was something she had to create for herself, within the life she had built. She began to make small changes, taking time for herself, pursuing her passions, and opening up to Reuben in ways she never had before. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And for the first time in a long time, Cynthia felt hopeful. She had questioned everything she believed about love and fidelity, and in doing so, she had found a new understanding of herself. And that, she realized, was the greatest gift of all. The end. Thanks for watching. Please, comment, like, share and subscribe to my channel for more interesting videos.